What to do, what to talk about. Of course, I know what to talk about. It's late March, and we're talking about a season that is over coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, just type in Locked On Sabres, easiest way to find the channel. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll read some comments from our YouTube channel today in reaction to our most recent episode about Jordan Greenway and how I have not been impressed with the new Sabres acquisition in his first 8 games for the team. It's not going to be a happy show. 7-3 Predators over the Sabres. I'm going to Nashville this week, so I'm going to have a better time in Nashville than the Sabres had against Nashville. That was as bad as it could possibly get. I could not believe, I guess I could believe, right? How bad it went, how the goals stacked on top of each other. We're getting into all of that, though, coming up on today's show. As always, if you want to hit us up on the socials, I'm on Twitter at Sneaky Joe Sports, and the podcast account is at Locked On Sabres. If you're looking to get a comment or a question on the show, the best way to do that is either on our Twitter account or on our YouTube channel comment section. Keep it clean in the YouTube comment section. I've also got a thought coming up here on the World Baseball Classic as it pertains to hockey. Connor McDavid stole one of my takes from the other day. So I'm going to tell you what McDavid said, and we'll rail on Bettman a little bit, which is always a fun thing to do for any hockey podcast anywhere. A little bit on Sabres and Devils a little bit later on, too, because I'll be in Nashville, so I will not be around for that game. And I always take the opportunity to talk up Lindy Ruff, who has done an incredible job this season in Jersey. Before we do any of that, though, how about our comment of the day? And this one comes in from Mortal Gaming on YouTube. He says, I had the same thought on Greenway after he played 2 or 3 games. He just didn't look like a Sabre. Just didn't seem to fit in the system. Honestly thought he was going to be in for more points and above all, be the hitter that the team needs. I'm not Mr. physicality guy, and like the team needs that grit, that toughness. It is kind of interesting, though, that the guy that was acquired to do all that and provide some offense is not only not providing the offense, but is not even really supplying all the grit or the physicality. I don't really know what Jordan Greenway has done for them. That was really the theme of the comment section for our most recent episode. So if you want to chime in on that conversation, feel free. Before we get to Sabres and Predators, we'll put that off just a little bit on the back burner here. I do want to start with what Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers. Do I need to say who Connor McDavid is? What McDavid said about the World Baseball Classic and stealing a take that I've had recently. McDavid said, quote, "It's what we've been asking for in hockey for a long time. Best on best. Everybody's talking about baseball. Did you see Ohtani versus Trout? That's what hockey's been missing for almost a decade." End quote. Now, as Scott Wheeler points out from The Athletic, McDavid has been consistent on this. McDavid who was the best player since Gretzky, has not donned the Canadian flag on his jersey since he was 17 years old. It has been almost a decade since he has done that. And that was in the World Juniors. He is absolutely 1,000% correct about that. You know, it's one of the most disappointing things to me about the sport is that the lack of important international play. This is a sport that is global. Not everywhere, right? It's not soccer. You know, you don't have, countries in Asia that are sending teams to any tournaments like this, or South America or Africa or Australia. It's limited while still being global. It's North America and it's Europe. Some of Europe. That's it. And there are hiccups, right? Like right now, at least, Russia is hard to figure out because they have troops in Ukraine and they have been banished from the international scene globally when it comes to sports, not just hockey, but soccer and tennis and everything. The Olympics. So Russia is a tough thing to figure out, but this predates all that, right? This long predates that. In fact, they've not poured any effort into an international tournament since the World Cup in the late 90s. And now they don't even send their players to the Olympics. One of two things to me has to happen. What I want to see have happen, what McDavid wants to see have happen, what all of hockey fans want to see have happen. Give us a tournament that is important and that we could build towards being important. You know what? Even if it's not the Olympics, because the NHL and Bettman in particular's problem with the Olympics is always that the NHL doesn't generate any revenue from it, because Bettman and Bill Daly are both very short-sighted leaders who only look at the bottom line and do not place any value in growing the game, creating new marketplaces, none of it, other than a game or here in European countries that already like hockey anyway. It's all fake. Bettman doesn't care about growing the sport. Neither does Bill Daly. And that's why it hasn't happened. If they did care about that, one of two things would happen. They would either send their players to the Olympics every time, and they would not make it a bargaining chip about the collective bargaining agreement. It's insane. Every little thing to Bettman has to be a bargaining chip in the CBA negotiations. So that's one. And that's one option. Second option is to sustain the World Cup of Hockey, or they rename it World Hockey Classic. You just had the World Baseball Classic. How about fly it under a new name like the World Hockey Classic? Start fresh. Because the World Cup of Hockey, it happened in 2016. And nobody really cared about it, right? Like I thought it was really cool. I went up to Toronto to watch a couple of games, and I thought the action was incredible. I still will maintain one of the greatest hockey games I have ever seen in my life was Team North America, which was the under 23 US and Canadian players, against Team Russia in Toronto in that tournament. It was awesome. It was awesome. But that was a one-off. There was no history. There was no respect. Someone my age, there's no other World Cup. You did it in 2016. You haven't done it since. And you have to go 12 years before 2016 to find the last one. And 96 before that. They've done it 3 times. 96, 2004, and 2016. It's way too spread out. You can't build any momentum that way. You can't get anybody to respect the importance of the tournament. The World Baseball Classic has grown, right? There was a time where nobody cared about the World Baseball Classic, where it was just like this tournament off over here. Like, who cares about the World Baseball Classic? But you know what? They kept going with it. They kept putting effort into it. And eventually, after tournament after tournament after tournament, all right, you build up a little bit of history, and suddenly it starts to matter a little bit more and more and more. And then eventually, you get a full-blown circus in Miami over the last 2 weeks for an awesome tournament with stars of the sport representing their country, and you get that national pride behind the tournament. Team USA for baseball. The Miami crowd was incredible with all the Latin American teams filling up the stadiums as well. It was an awesome tournament. And then you had, of course, the highlight at the end with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, the stars of the sport. One-on-one teammates going at it. Japan versus the US for the championship. That is theater. That is sports theater that has stakes. But it has stakes because they kept going with it. And hockey, they just have not, the NHL and Bettman have not put the commitment that they need to into the international scene to have anything like the World Baseball Classic. And my hope would be that eventually, I had no faith that Bettman will ever get there. He's had 30 years to do this, and he never has. My hope is that eventually his replacement, even if it's Bill Daly, who I don't have a lot of confidence in either, his replacement will see the value of the international hockey scene, and he will go for it. And hopefully they'll do it in time for Team USA to knock the socks off of Team Canada, because I've been preaching for 3 years now that Team USA is caught up to Team Canada. in terms of talent, in terms of skill level, in net especially. If you look at the rosters on paper right now, I proclaim the U.S. as a better roster than Canada. And the worst part is we have no way of measuring that because nobody wants to create a international hockey tournament that matters. So we can't test it. We can't test it. So I echo McDavid's comments, obviously, and I hope he gets his wish one day. McDavid for commissioner. Let's make McDavid commissioner. When we come back, Sabres and Predators, we'll get to it. 7-3 in favor of Nashville. Is this group just shot for this season? We'll ask that question. We'll look at the game, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Sabres and Devils matchup for Friday. Coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is the thick of the college basketball season. We are into the Sweet 16, and it is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, you could get Alabama as the favorite to reach the Final Four. Houston also minus money to reach the Final Four. Two teams I actually have facing off in my championship game for my bracket. Bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win when new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, super easy to use, and then you can bet on everything. The money line, point scores, threes drained. If you're betting Buffalo hockey games, you could bet on over saves for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. You could bet on Alex Tuch anytime goal scorer, usually a little bit in the plus money for Tuch. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to learn more, make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres get thumped by the Nashville Predators, 7-3. Another embarrassing performance at home by the Buffalo Sabres. In terms of the score, I will say, yet again, a common theme with this team over the last 2 weeks. The team gets blown out, and I'm sitting here after, probably to some of you sounding like an idiot, with, oh, they actually didn't play that bad. And you're probably thinking, Joe, they lost 7-3. Joe, they lost 10-4. Joe, they lost 7-0. And I'm sitting here again, looking like a clown, thinking that they didn't play that bad. But you know what? They didn't really play that bad. Look at shot attempts at 5-on-5 in this game. Again, the same theme with this team. 44 for Buffalo, 37 for Nashville. Of course. Scoring chances. 20. Now, this one was actually way more in favor of Nashville, to be fair. 20 for Buffalo, 30 for Nashville. But high danger chances were close. 11 for Buffalo, 14 for Nashville. And expected goals for at 5-on-5 in this game. 60% for the Sabres to 39.8% for Nashville. They didn't play that bad. But the goaltending. It's the but with every one of these games. The goaltending. It completely let them down yet again. And it's a different goalie every time, right? 2 weeks ago against Dallas, Eric Comrie lets in 10 goals on 3 expected. 7 below expected. Great job, Comrie. Okay, here comes Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Let's see if he can get hot at the end of the season. Oh, nope, 7. All 7 in the back of his net. Expected goals, 3.5. Oh, of course, thanks, Luukkonen. Now Anderson comes in, the guy who's been the best and the most consistent of the 3 all year, and Craig Anderson's letting 6 in the first 2 periods, and the Sabres in the game, expected goals against, 2.17. They're allowing 5 goals above expected. It's incredible. And in the last 2 weeks now, going back to that Dallas 10-goal game, the Sabres have an expected goals mark of 20, and they have allowed 38. They are 18 goals below expected in the last 2 weeks during this pitiful stretch of hockey that has completely lost them the season. That is one of the worst marks in the NHL for a team for the whole season. They're allowing twice as many goals as what should be happening. It is the goaltending. Plain and simple. I don't want to put any of it on the players. I'm not saying they've been great defensively, but you know what? They haven't been great defensively all year. That's their style. That's their game. They take chances. They take risks. They don't have that deep blue line yet that can withstand a Samuelson injury. They play high event hockey, which means, and I'll make this point all throughout the summer leading into next season, the Sabres play such a high event style that it is more imperative to them to have strong goaltending than any other team. And not only do they not have the best goaltending, which you would want them to have, they have the worst goaltending, and it's not even close. And why is Don Granato do what he does with pulling goalies? He left Comrie in for all 10 against Dallas. He left Luukkonen in for all 7 against Boston, and he left Anderson in for 6. I could not believe 5-1 in the second period, and the Predators have just scored on back-to-back shots. They have scored 3 goals in a 6-minute stretch, and the Sabres call timeout. And by the way, there was a disallowed goal in there as well. The Sabres call timeout. Granato calls timeout. And what does he do? He puts Anderson back in there. That is the time to go to Luukkonen. Luukkonen didn't allow a goal after the switch, so maybe it helped in some way, but the goaltending, they are right now out of the playoff race. I'm killing the hunt. The hunt is dead as a segment. I'm no longer updating the standings. Pittsburgh, I don't care. It's over. They're 1% to make the playoffs. I mean, come on, give me a break. I'm killing the segment, and it's because of their goalies. Plain and simple. It's because of their goalies. And we are going to have to really focus in. All the minutes I'm going to talk about the Sabres in this offseason on this show, 80% of them are going to be on the goaltending. 70% of them are going to be on the goalie situation. Levi, Luukkonen, Comrie, Anderson probably retiring, a new guy, Demko. Just, they got to get somebody else in here. They cannot walk into next season with the goalies that they have right now. I'm ready to completely clean house. One tweet I had earlier today about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and I'll talk more about him as well at some point. Luukkonen, where is that tweet? Luukkonen, since going pro in the NHL, 44 games, 897 save percentage, and goal saved above expected. He ranks 80th out of 96. And before that, in the AHL, 69 games in the AHL, Luukkonen had an 895 save percentage. That is terrible. Where is the evidence that UPL is an NHL goaltender and should be penciled in for next season, other than where he was drafted, round 2, and his height, 6'5"? Tell me where the evidence is, other than where he was drafted and how tall he is. All right, that's all I really want to do about that game. I mean, Thompson scored a 96-mile-an-hour slap shot that was awesome, broke his goal-scoring drought, but it was 6-1 by that point. 43rd of the year. You know, the one thing that's positive to track the rest of the way, maybe we could replace the In the Hunt segment with the Thompson 50-goal hunt or the 100-point hunt, because now he's 7 goals away from getting 50 on the season. Jeff Skinner scores his 30th goal of the season. Great season for him. An incredible turnaround. I feel bad for him that he's going to miss the playoffs again. Never made the playoffs in his entire career. And that is the 6th time in his career that he has reached, the 7th time in his career that he's reached 30 goals. All right, when we come back, we'll wrap things up, talking a little bit about the Devils matchup on Friday. That's ahead here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now. You get a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer is valid through March 31st. You got over a week. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase, and we've got a matchup for you on Friday night. The Sabres hosting the New Jersey Devils. Now, don't want to talk as much about the matchup as I'm interested in the Devils going into these playoffs. This is they have two more matchups against Lindy's Devils. We'll see if the Sabres can snap the losing streak here, but again, they're so far out of the race at this point. I can't even take it seriously, the idea of them chasing anybody down. But their psyche, I guess, right? Like the story of the season is going to be shaped at least a little bit by these final dozen games. I mean, maybe it already has been shaped by their last dozen games. The season's fallen apart. The meaningful games in March, I mean, that died quickly. But the narrative will only be stronger, and the pressure will only be stronger on the Sabres next season at the beginning if they don't, kick it into gear here at the end. And the Devils are not an easy team to get back to get back at it against. The Devils on the season, 45, 18, and 8. They are the team that has taken that jump we've all been waiting the Sabres to take for 10 years. They went from bad to great. Not bad to pretty good to good, then to great. They're the one example. How many times there's a Pittsburgh guy yesterday that says, well, you don't want to be Penguins don't want to rebuild. Look how long it could take to rebuild. Look at the Devils. The Devils in 1 year made the jump. They went from really bad last year to, they're a Stanley Cup contender. Boom. They didn't have to go bad, pretty good, good in the playoffs, second round. Oh, they're great. Now they won the Stanley Cup. There doesn't have to be 5 steps, 5 rungs on the ladder. The Devils just went from boom, bad to great right away. They're third place in the NHL in terms of points. And, if Carolina and Boston didn't exist, they would be a favorite. If they were in the West, they would be the favorite to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. And Lindy Ruff is at the helm watching all of this happen. And I love Lindy to death, as most Sabre fans do. And this is one of his greatest examples of being an adaptable hockey coach. The Devils, man, I mean, they're 6th in the NHL in scoring, 247 goals. They are 2nd in the NHL in goal differential. And Lindy has opened it up, right? He's allowed them to play offensive. He's allowed them to be the young team that they are. They're not as young as the Sabres, but they're very young. And they play the right style. They are a puck-moving team. Jack Hughes, for all the credit Don Granato gets, right? For Tage Thompson taking a leap underneath Granato. Jack Hughes under Lindy Ruff has gone from a 30-point player, or about a point every other game, to 81 points in 67 games. And he was a first overall pick, so there was more assurance that was in there than Thompson. But Lindy's gotten that out of him. That's a great job. Dougie Hamilton on the blue line, moving the puck. Jesper Bratt, what a find. 30 goals for him. Dawson Mercer shows up this year, a 21-year-old that's got 22 goals. Young guys all over, littered throughout the lineup. And to their credit, they have gotten some favorable goaltending. They did a good job. They made the goalie move in the summer the Sabres didn't make, right? I guess Comrie kind of is, but they went out and traded for Vitek Vanacek. They didn't wait for internal growth. They went out and they got a guy. And Vanacek has been good this year. Not incredible, but he's just been really good for them this year. A 643 quality start percentage, a 909 save percentage. The Devils are a complete team. They're a talented team. They're a fast team. They're a young team. And I think they are here to stay for a long time. And I think that's exciting for Lindy Ruff. Not exciting for the Sabres because it's another contending team in the conference. But remember, the Devils began the year with their fans chanting "Fire Ruff." They wanted to fire Lindy Ruff. He had a short leash coming into the year. And how long is he going to be there now? Could he be there for 5 more years? I mean, you get one big season like this. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. I'm hoping Lindy can stick for a while here. He's 62 years old. This is his 3rd job. And a lot of guys don't get a 4th crack at it. This might be it for him. The longer he does well, I guess the more opportunities he'll get. But 63, by the way, now is Lindy. He probably wants this to be his final job, I'm sure. And that's why I'm rooting for them, especially in the East when you got the Hurricanes and the Bruins and the Leafs. Who are you going to root for in the East? The Lightning? No, the Devils. Sabre fans undoubtedly in the Eastern Conference this year should be rooting for the Devils, right? Not even close, because it's 1, Lindy, 2, they're new. They haven't won in a while. And we hate everybody else. Devils. You won't be rooting for him on Friday unless you're trying to get Connor Bedard, get that lottery odds up. But Devils are my team I'll be rooting for come playoff time. Friday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to enjoy a bachelor party, and I'll talk to you after the weekend. God forbid, hopefully we're not talking about a losing streak any longer. Hopefully DeAndre Hopkins is Buffalo Bill by then. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Now going to make your next listen Locked On Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.